I don't think we should assume that regional or sub-regional organizations, just because they're closer to the problem, that they're necessarily closer to the solution. I don't think that pure wisdom resides either in the Security Council and at the UN or in regional and sub-regional organizations. Yes, they're closer to the situation, but in some cases that may mean that some of their members may have particular ties, either with one part of the government or another in the case, or may have populations that cross borders and might be affected one way or the other. They may be concerned because of refugee flows and things of this sort. And there may be economic consequences for the region and not just for the country involved. So I see a certain amount of inconsistency in the way regional and sub-regional organizations act, just as I see a certain amount of inconsistency in the way the Security Council acts. I think what is very clear is if the Security Council and regional organizations are moving in the same direction, then they reinforce each other's legitimacy in a political sense. They expand the capacity for action and make the implementation of decisions made by the Council much more effective, because you often need neighboring countries, for example, in sanctions and other things to help carry them out. In the case of the African Union, I think it's the AU's in a somewhat awkward position, because it has been in the forefront of advancing responsibly protect and ideas related to responsibly protect. I think when the Secretary General talks about the African roots, the African institutions, the African experience for RtoP, I think it's absolutely right. There are a number of cases, obviously, but no case as vivid as that of the Rwandan genocide of 1994. That and the inaction and denial, really, by the UN and by the international community about what was happening. It was just a shameful day for everybody. And so, trying not to have another Rwanda drives much of this narrative. On the other hand, the relationships between, let's say, the Peace and Security Council of the African Union and the Security Council of the UN are unusually close. They have back and forth, usually twice a year, meetings of the two, one in Addis Ababa, one in New York. There's desk-to-desk cooperation between the UN staff, the staff of the African Union. There's a lot of back and forth, and obviously a number of member states are very active in trying to build the capacity of the AU. And there is this 10-year agreement between the UN and the AU on strengthening the sort of security, peace and security capacities of the AU. So it's and of course, so much of the Security Council's business is in Africa. It's usually said around 2/3, depending on how you count. But a lot of peacekeeping missions, a lot of political missions, a lot of mediation that may involve the African Union, the UN, and sometimes one of the regional economic communities as well. So it's a very, I think it's a relatively intense relationship, and I think that has pluses and minuses. And there are differences within the AU itself, within the members, on how to react to things like Libya. I think it's worth remembering that in 1973, the resolution on the use of force and other things, the 3 African members of the Council all voted for it. If they had voted against it, it would have died, even without a veto, because then there would have been 8 states abstaining, and they would not have had enough states to pass the resolution. But they didn't. They all voted for it, which I thought was quite striking. So there's sometimes some tensions about who's in the lead.